Welcome to the Clinical File. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and this is my mental health analysis of the Tyler James Robertson case. I will be focusing on the main mental health and psychological indicators while providing the backstory. I don't just talk about the crimes, I talk about the psychology behind the crimes and the mysteries that captivate us. I look beyond the facts of the case to understand the why of the crime. My analysis is based on my speculations. It's not a diagnosis of anyone involved in this case. What drives a 22-year-old student with no criminal history to climb onto a university rooftop and pull the trigger on a national figure? Is it possible for a person to harbor a violent, world-altering plan while maintaining the facade of a quiet and mellow neighbor? Tyler Robertson didn't just act on impulse, but left behind a trail of calculated psychological breadcrumbs that reveal a deadly fractured sense of reality. On September 10, 2025, a single shot from a bolt-action rifle echoed across the campus of Utah Valley University. Their target was Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old co-founder of Turning Point USA, who was speaking at an outdoor debate in front of 3,000 people. Can a person's political grievances evolve into a lethal obsession without anyone in their immediate circle noticing the shift? In mental health terms, we often look at the concept of leakage, where a person's internal ideation begins to seep into their external environment. Tyler Robertson was a third-year electrical apprenticeship student at Dixie Technical College and had briefly studied engineering at Utah State. Academically capable and described by neighbors as smart and quiet, he lacked the overt red flags many expect in a high-profile perpetrator. However, the absence of a criminal record does not mean that there were no psychological markers. It often means the indicators were internal. Tyler lived in Utah, a highly conservative area where his parents were active Republican voters. When an individual grows up in an environment where their personal views diverge sharply from their family and community, it can create a sense of profound isolation. This social alienation is a powerful psychological stressor that can lead a young man to find a community and validation in extremist online spaces instead. If a person feels like an invisible outlier in their own home, do they seek a heroic or villainous identity online to compensate for their perceived insignificance? After the shooting, investigators found gun casings with disturbing inscriptions like "Hey Fascists, Catch," and a reference to an anti-fascist resistance song. These engravings are not just evidence, they are a psychological signature. Signatures in crime are often about fulfilling a psychological need, such as the need for power, control, or a specific type of recognition. By engraving these messages, Tyler was essentially speaking to the victim and to the world, ensuring his motive was preserved, even if he was not there to explain it. How does the process of dehumanization allow a perpetrator to view a public figure as a symbol rather than a human being with a family? In my speculation, this is a form of cognitive splitting, where the perpetrator sees the world in absolute binaries, pure good versus pure evil. If Tyler viewed his target solely as an avatar of fascism, it likely lowered the psychological hurdle required to commit an act of lethal violence. The planning phase of this crime revealed a chilling level of technical focus and emotional detachment. Police found messages Tyler sent to his roommate regarding retrieving a rifle from a drop point and leaving it wrapped in a towel. This indicates a task-oriented mindset where the individual is so focused on logistics that they successfully compartmentalize the emotional reality of murder. Is a person who spends a week planning a sniper attack from a specific rooftop experiencing a total break from reality or hyperfixation on a mission? Robertson's behavior after the event is equally telling from a behavioral health perspective. He fled the scene in a gray Dodge Challenger and participated in a 33-hour manhunt before surrendering. Interestingly, he didn't just hide. He He contacted a family friend and eventually his father, who consulted a minister. This suggests that despite the gravity of his actions, Tyler still held on to a thin thread of his former social identity and moral foundation. The fact that he feared being shot by police during his surrender suggests a self-preservation instinct that often clashes with the suicide by cop mentality seen in other cases. Does the fear of police indicate that he still valued his own life, or was it a tactical decision to ensure his message lived on through a trial? When Robinson appeared in court in December 2025, his body language was described as remarkably calm, even smiling at his family. Observers noted that he didn't appear to be crying or outburst-prone individual depicted in the digitally altered photos circulating online. This level of composure in the face of a capital murder charges can be a sign of narcissistic satisfaction. It is the sense that he achieved the significance he felt he lacked as a quiet student in southern Utah. Why would a 22-year-old risk the death penalty for a moment of televised violence? The answer may lie in the perceived grievance cycle, where the individual believes they are correcting a massive social wrong through a singular dramatic act. Recent court filings in late 2025 have added a layer of complexity to the psychology of the legal process itself. Robertson's defense team is seeking to disqualify the entire Utah County Attorney's Office. They allege that a top prosecutor had a family member just 85 feet from the shooting who fled in a state of panic. This highlights the psychological impact of secondary trauma on the survivors and the community at large. Even those tasked with seeking justice are humans who can be deeply affected by the terror of a sniper attack in a public space. If the prosecutors are being driven by a personal fear or familiar trauma, can the legal process remain psychologically neutral? This case is a chilling reminder of how quiet behavior can sometimes be a mask for deep ideological radicalization. Tyler Robinson was not a loner in the traditional sense, but he was isolated within his own ideological bubble. The aha moment in this case comes when we realize the inscriptions on the casings were not just slogans. They were the final step in a long process of psychological self-indoctrination. By analyzing the why, we see a young man who likely felt violence was the only language that would make the world listen to his internal voice. We all know this case very, very closely. It was all over the news not that long ago. Charlie Kirk was assassinated in front of thousands of people live. Not only in public, there were people watching online. And so who knows how many thousands of people watched this. And it was dragged on in the media. It still is out there. I wanted to do this because I wanted to bring awareness to how mental illness can play a big part in political violence. We see this in so many other cases as well. And it's a tragic thing that a person feels so isolated that they feel like the only way to make their point is to do it in the most dramatic and violent way, as Tyler did. And it's so tragic. So what did you think about this case? Were there any elements that stood out to you? If you want more mental health analysis of true crime stories like this one, be sure to subscribe for more. And if you found this case compelling, be sure to watch this next story. It will make you more aware of your surroundings. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe.